Welcome into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for the running back sleepers. The algorithm has been killing me lately, so please drop a like. That really helps. Drop a comment. That really helps. Let's get the word out there that my stuff is coming out. And before we get into this video, the running back sleepers, couple of things I want to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of the definition of the sleeper. So, quick look over there. We can read that up quickly. But also, at the end of the video, a couple of channel announcements in terms of perks for becoming a member of the channel. So stay tuned for that, or check it out on your own time, or be aware that that is the last couple of minutes of the video. So you can just tune it out once you get to the end of these sleepers, if you wish. But first of all, sleepers. The definition of a sleeper is a player who is not being valued properly in the fantasy football community. I will concede oftentimes, and not always, and this is part of the definition. It is referring to late round draft picks. However, that is not what we're going off of here. If a guy that I think should be getting drafted in the first round, first overall, let's say even, gets drafted in the third round, to me that is a sleeper. You're sleeping on this guy. I don't care that he's still a high round pick in the third round. You're waiting too long to take him. So sleepers for me is, in terms of this, you'll see it is guys who have the biggest difference with compared to the ECR, the expert consensus ranking from Fantasy Pros website, is how I just determined this list. So sometimes there are guys on these lists where they wouldn't make it to the list if I was just creating a list out of thin air, but I'm not. I'm sticking true to my rankings compared to the expert consensus rankings, and then I just filtered through the ones who I had the biggest differences with out of like the top 48 or so running backs. So let's go to my top 10 sleepers here, starting off with Ray Davis at number 10. ECR running back 59, my running back 46. That's a difference of 13 spots, and I am higher on Ray Davis than the experts. Buffalo wants to be a little bit more balanced this year under Joe Brady, new offensive coordinator, was the offensive coordinator for the final 7, 8, 9 games last season. Don't remember the exact amount, but became the offensive coordinator last year, could retain that job this year. And they want to be more balanced within this new offensive system than they've ever been with Josh Allen at behind center. Ray Davis was many of the late round guys that I'd be happy to have on my roster, my fantasy roster, and he's higher on that list than he is on others' lists because he'll be on the Buffalo Bills offense in the event that the starting running back goes down, James Cook. I really like that role, just purely based on having some faith in Josh Allen and this offense to have a running back that's not only going to be themselves viable, but also will get those extra touchdown types of opportunities that not all offenses were afforded throughout the season. And that's something that I'm willing to take like all day as a solid backup running back. So that's why I have Ray Davis higher than others. I end up valuing him a little bit more. That's going to bring us on to my running back 44, Audric Estime, who I have 19 spots higher than the ECR. That means the ECR expert consensus ranking on him is running back 63. Now, when you look back at how Sean Payton utilized his running backs oftentimes in New Orleans, you would see that he typically limited Alvin Kamara's usage as a rusher to some extent. And I think that the plan here may be for Javonte Williams to be utilized like Alvin Kamara. Get, 40% of the rushing work, not like the 60, 70, 80% that a lot of starting running backs get, but get a good share of the receiving work. And then you put Audric Estime here in the Mark Ingram type of role, if you remember that duo and how that worked out. Not that I'm expecting Audric Estime to be like a valuable fantasy asset in that Mark Ingram type role, but I also do believe that there's a chance that Audric Estime could even push Javonte Williams to really be like the starter here. Because I do think that this offense, they're going to want to make sure that they're not in second long, third and long. Audric Estime being the guy who can get them those 3-4 yards that are being blocked every single time, whereas Javonte Williams, a little less reliable for that. He likes to kick it out. He's not so great between the tackles and try and kick it out, sometimes getting caught behind the line of scrimmage, at a higher rate than an Audric Estime might. Okay, so I have done some shuffling with my rankings, and actually, I have already pushed Audric Espe down a little bit from here. He is now my running back 46. Ray Davis now my running back 45. So Ray Davis actually 14 spots higher than ECR. Audric Espe 17 spots higher than the ECR. Just a little minor update that I didn't quite fully install before doing this video that I had forgotten that I made, but notated. That's going to bring us on to my running back 8 here for the sleepers in Marshawn Lloyd. I have 11 spots higher than the ECR. My running back 42, ECR running back 53. I do believe that the Green Bay Packers have a role ready to go for Marshawn Lloyd to just slip right on into. I don't think it's going to be, Josh Jacobs getting 80-90% of the work. I don't think that's how it's quite going to go. And I think that Marshawn Lloyd is an excellent fit for that role for the Green Bay Packers that they have ready to go for him. The staff has expressed excitement to get him as involved as possible, and I don't think that that's just camp talk. I do think that they are really plan on installing Marshawn Lloyd into this offense in a role. Being the receiving back would be that role, and it's extra valuable for two of the three main, types of fantasy scoring formats, half PPR, full PPR. I think Marshawn Lloyd will have some sort of usability in those formats as the season goes along, assuming that he takes this role and runs with it. There's always a chance he's not very good and he can't do anything with it. There's also the fact that Josh Jacobs, slightly fragile health-wise. At any point in time, Marshawn Lloyd could be the starting running back, and there's plenty of reasons to believe that having the starting running back on this Green Bay Packers offense could be very valuable. One of the better offenses to have the backup quarterback on your roster for. So you heard it here. I think Marshawn Lloyd has a chance to be low end, like a low end running back fantasy contributor to some extent on day one, with more upside to him as the season were to go along. That's going to bring us on to my running back 7 here for this list, and that is Jerome Ford, who I have ranked 33rd. That makes him 7-8 spots higher than the ECR. ECR in him is 41st. Another discrepancy, I might have a slight ranking update on him. Yes, so I moved up Devin Singletary in my rankings, which pushed a few guys back a spot or two. I think that might be what happened here. Whatever the case, Jerome Ford's actually, I have him ranked 34th, so 7 spots difference from the ECR. Currently in my rankings, Ford will be the starter for the first half of the season and maybe more for this Cleveland offense, a team that I expect, the defense to give this offense some good opportunities. I expect this offense to be good enough to be somewhat reliable and allow for Jerome Ford to at least perform somewhat similarly to how he did last year. He was the EV running back 16 last year, so if he can perform somewhat similarly to that for half of the season, I think at running back 33, 34 here, at that point in the draft, you're going to be getting yourself some solid value, and running back position is definitely something that you can find another guy throughout the year. Sometimes you might have to pay up for it, but and there's plenty of them that'll come, and then they'll be busts, or they'll only be valuable for a few weeks, but still one of the easier spots to find some replacements throughout the season, if not the easiest out of all of the positions. That's going to bring us on to my RB6 here, my on this list, or my RB30 in my rankings, or 31 maybe. Yeah, my RB31 in my rankings now. So I moved somebody up. I bet you this was the Jaylen Warren, actually, is not Devin Singletary. So Jaylen Warren got moving up, helped move Jerome Ford and J.K. Dobbins each back a spot. So J.K. Dobbins, my running back 31. That's a difference of 20 compared to the ECR 51. Myself and our lads are expecting J.K. Dobbins to be the starter for the Chargers. So for me, I talked about this a little bit in the rankings video. Like, if a guy is the starter on a team, they definitely need to be drafted. There's a decent chance that J.K. Dobbins is a guy that we're looking back on and wondering why he was going so late in drafts. So I'm a pretty big fan of taking a risk on J.K. Dobbins at some point. I do understand that I could be a little bit high on him here. I'll be willing to possibly push him back as this offseason goes along, but he's certainly worth a shot before being someone's 5th running back on the board, off the board, which is what the RB51 would suggest. So that's going to bring us on to, or roughly, maybe RB4 territory there. 12, 24, 36, 48. No, RB5 territory. All right, that brings us on to my top 5 here in Chase Brown. Leads off that list at my top 5 sleeper, number 5 sleeper. Chase Brown, my RB26. I have him 10 spots ahead of the ECR. ECR on him is running back 36. So he's not being completely ignored here by the fantasy community. I was high on him at this point last season, and here I am again, although I'm much closer to ECR than I was last year. At this point in the season, I did end up jacking Chase Brown way back in my rankings by the time that we got to draft last year. But I had high expectations from last year, and I have fairly high expectations for him again. I think that he is a fantastic running back, and I'm not sold that Zach Moss is a fantastic running back. Not that I'm trying to take away anything from how well he did perform early on last season. You combine those two, though, and yeah, I'm just going to be more optimistic on Chase Brown than some others are. This will be a pass-heavy offense, and Chase Brown is the better receiving back, so I think that works in favor of Chase Brown as well. The big issue is durability, and by bringing Zach Moss in, we can infer that Cincinnati doesn't necessarily believe that he is entirely durable. I still think that Chase Brown will be the better fantasy asset, and I still think there's a chance that he is the leading rusher in this backfield as well, and that Chase Brown's more of a contingency plan in the event that Chase Brown doesn't take that next step and or gets injured at any point because they don't trust the durability. Bring us on to my running back 4 sleeper here. My running back 25 in my rankings, 9 spots higher than the ECR. That makes him the ECR running back 34. Austin Ekeler is not going to be the sole running back again, and for me, that's a good thing. You can put him amongst the ranks of Aaron Jones for so many years in the Green Bay backfield, the Alvin Kamaras of the world, the Austin Ekelers of the world prior to these last couple of years when all of a sudden he was asked to take on the full workload, which he was only able to do for 1 year. And that year he had a little bit better run blocking. The run blocking was atrocious last year. That didn't help things. He probably didn't help their stats either, but when he was healthy, and that's another thing to keep in mind here, the health of Austin Ekeler. Regardless, I think he can be highly efficient when he's not asked to be on the field all the time and when he's not asked to be banging between the tackles so often / all the time either. So I'm getting pretty excited for Austin Ekeler again. I definitely think even drafting him around here that there is still more upside to be had from him. And I don't really want to be missing out on that too late in the draft like RB34 would suggest. Another thought here is that the Cliff Kingsbury offense that's coming in, it's very reliant on a great receiving running back and gets those running backs usually into some good positions. And we saw that work in Arizona as well, even in a not so much like his college offense, and maybe he tries to get a little bit more of that element going, especially with Austin Ekeler just being an important role in the Cliff Kingsbury offense. So I'm not letting him getting drafted as low as like an RB3. To me, that's quite insane for Austin Ekeler. I think he could have a bounce back year this year and really surpass even this type of ranking. That's to bring us on to I'm going to go into the top 3 sleepers, starting off with my number 3 sleeper, Jonathan Brooks, my 24th ranked running back, so just 1 spot ahead of Austin Ekeler, 14 spots ahead of the ECR. The ECR on him is running back 38, and time and time again, youth at the running back position wins out. So there's argument number 1 for Jonathan Brooks. Argument number 2, Jonathan Brooks would have been a first round running back if not for the fact that he was coming off of an ACL injury last year. This year coming into the season, one that he is expected to recover from by the start of the season, which I'm sure is part of the reason why he still got taken quite high. But given where he was taken, given the injury, yeah, he would have been a first round kind of guy if it wasn't for that injury thing. So I think he's very talented is what I am saying. I would be more bullish on him, but we could probably expect him to be a bit limited, not only by the offense that he's on, but also due to the fact that normally running backs don't return to 100% off of an ACL injury like this in year 1. Him being younger does help him to maybe be closer to that 100%, and maybe he'll reach that 100% by like week 4 or 95% by week 4. And maybe that's where he stalls for the year, another year off, and then he's back up to 100%. So there is a little bit of that concern for sure in terms of how efficient of a running back that he might be, how elusive he might be when he can get, when he breaks loose, is he going to be able to really turn on the jets, get all the way there, and spring that big play for a touchdown. All those little concerns, might just be on the lower end of those things happening too often, limiting his ultimate upside there. I do think that running back 38 is far too low for a starting running back on an NFL roster, especially the first running back in the draft getting drafted, who's also going into a role with, I don't think, any competition in front of him really for that work. Plus, Dave Canales will get the most out of these guys. Just look at Rachaad White's running back 8 finish last year. That's right. This is the same guy who got Rachaad White up to an 8 finish last year. So, lots of upside for Jonathan Brooks as well. Bring us on to my number 2 sleeper, my number 13 running back, Zamir White, who I have 9 spots higher than the ECR. Zamir White, that brings us Zamir White. The experts have him ranked by consensus at running back 22. First of all, let's be real here. Yeah, Zamir White is my dude. I have a lot of faith in him. I was a big fan of White, both of the White brothers, Rachaad White, Zamir White, coming out of the NFL draft in 2022. Zamir finally got his first opportunity later on last year when Josh Jacobs, had some issues, misses some time. Zamir White gets in there and he smashes in some dudes' faces. That's what you can get for him, and that so fits this team identity that they're going to want to create there. And I think that they're going to be running a lot. His opportunities are going to be incredibly high, just like they were 20 types once Antonio Pierce took over and he was the starting running back. He's getting like 20 carries a game on average. Very, very high there, and he did great with that opportunity. Zamir actually projected as the 5th best running back, and I don't project touchdowns, so keeping that out of the idea there. But his floor was like the 5th best floor, essentially, based on how well he did last year. He's everything that you want and need in a RB2 in terms of fantasy, and that is why technically he is my number 1 RB2 to own. As I said, Pierce wants to run the ball. He needs to run the ball. Hopefully their quarterback can keep defenses from loading the box too much. That is a definite concern here. What should give you that extra bit of hope and gave me that extra bit of confidence was that in games that Pierce started, he commanded over 10% of the targets. That's the receiving work. That's 4.25 targets per game on average while he had that starting spot in this offense. Some version of it. And he caught 75% of those targets. That's enough to help to give him a solid floor and really keep those touches even, going towards that number 20 or above number each and every week, which is a really, really good amount of touches to have. As a lot of people say, opportunity is king in fantasy football, and he's, let's see, right here, he averaged over 24 touches once you include that. So over about 20 rushes and about 4 receptions or targets per game, or maybe even touches, maybe that's even receptions per game. Don't recall exactly, but he went over 100 yards in 3 of the 4 games that he started last year. What I'm saying here is don't underestimate Zamir White. I think he could be absolutely fantastic. And there's really nothing standing in the way of him and a lot of those opportunities throughout this year. That's going to bring us on to my number 7 running back, James Cook. And I am so relieved to have had a guy like Brett Coleman, who recently released his video on the Buffalo Bills, the outlook for the Buffalo Bills, and he does a little segment about fantasy, and he looked at James Cook, ECR 15, and was like, that's too low. And I think he specifically said I could see him as high as like RB7. I swear to God, that's the number that he said. So that gives me a little extra confidence. Brett Coleman definitely knows football. And he and I both look at what James Cook did once he was with this Joe Brady offense, as Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator, and it was fantastic. He went from 12 rushes per game up to 17 rushing attempts per game. He went from 2.8 targets per game up to 3.9 targets per game. That's over a 40% increase in touches under Joe Brady. 40% increase, that's pretty big. His touchdown output also doubled. He went from 2 touchdowns for the first over half of the season to 4 touchdowns in 1 fewer games. So Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator for almost half the season, but not quite. I believe that would be 8 games compared to 9 games as not being. All in all, in full PPR scoring, he went from 11.8 fantasy points on average to 15.5 fantasy points on average, which would have made him tied for the RB13 on a week in and week out basis. Also was very consistent throughout that time. Keep that in mind. I may be a little bit high on him, sure, at running back 7. That's possible, but I don't think that I'm like a bit too high on him. Running back 11, I think, is about my floor for him. He definitely has room to grow in terms of touchdowns scored. Only getting like 8 touchdowns on the season is, I think, towards the lower end of possibilities. 10, 11, 12 more likely. So, and that would go a long ways towards pushing him into this running back, a top 8 type of running back. So there we go. That is my top 10 sleepers. A couple names there I really have a lot of faith in on this list. And let me know what you think of these guys. What you don't agree with an argument or whatever. Who did I screw up on? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate that. Now, let's get on to the channel membership stuff. So try to go through this quickly here. If you want to become a member, 99 cents to become a member, and you will get access to several things, including the ability to join a listeners league. Let's make a members only league, and by listeners only, members only, whatever, similar idea, not exactly the same, but I'm going to use the terms interchangeably. If you want to be a part of that, you get a password to the Discord channel when you join the channel. And if that doesn't work or anything, let me know. But then there's I think pretty clearly named channels on the Discord server. And on there, under the channels, one of them's like 2024 Fantasy Football League or something. You go in there and you comment on it. Let me know that you're interested. Bada bing, bada boom. We get enough people, we create a league. We don't get enough people, we'll try to do something. Next up, it said you get some access to some stuff. One of those things that you're going to get access to, which can help you in the off season and throughout the regular season as the season goes along, is my equalized value rankings. These are very much like average fantasy points per week, except they're even better. I've proved it many, many times to myself and to you on this channel, and that is because they take consistency into account. So one huge week doesn't offset the value that the player might have brought you in other weeks by too much. And so those equalized values, you can see where players ranked amongst each other from last season. It's been a while. You might misremember how good of a season some guys had compared to other guys, or it just might have been a little bit, I guess sometimes guys get more publicity for how good of a season they had throughout it, and your memory just remembers the good and forgets about the bad or something like that. Also, if you want rankings for standard format or full PPR, I need to know that the demand is there. So there's 2 channels. There's one of them named standard format or non-PPR format scoring, and one of them named full PPR scoring. Hop in there. Just let me know you would like some rankings made for you, and I will do that. Did my hand even? No. I went you. And that's it. Let's end this video. Peace on out. And I will see you on, by the way, I probably forgot to do this on Monday. The rankings video came out, so check that out if you haven't yet. And on Friday, the bus video will be coming out. Peace out, and we'll be getting to doing some mock drafting very soon.